Some truths are quiet. They sit in the corners of awareness, persistent yet elusive, uncomfortable yet undeniable. They ask for acknowledgement without apology, demanding recognition even when the heart resists. The uncomfortable truth is both a burden and a lens. It exposes contradictions, misalignments, and the hidden shadows of self and society. To face it is to confront fragility, to navigate cognitive dissonance, and to witness the unvarnished reality beneath perception. This story explores the psychology of the uncomfortable truth, how it shapes thought, emotion, and behavior, how avoidance, denial, and confrontation intertwine, and how the human mind balances the desire for comfort with the necessity of awareness. The first encounter with an uncomfortable truth is subtle, yet undeniable. It creeps into awareness like a shadow at the edge of vision, faint at first, then persistent. A thought, a memory, or an observation unsettles the mind. The heart may constrict, the stomach may tighten, and a quiet tension spreads across the body. Something is recognized, something that cannot be unseen. Discomfort manifests in layers. There is the cognitive spark, a question arises where certainty once lived. There is the emotional stir, unease, fear, or subtle grief. And there is the bodily response, restlessness, tension, or a sudden awareness of fragility. The mind instinctively searches for explanation, justification, or avoidance. Denial is often the first reflex. It is a protective mechanism, a subtle act of preservation. The uncomfortable truth challenges identity, expectation, or worldview, and the psyche instinctively recoils. I must be mistaken, or this cannot be the case, becomes the mental mantra of resistance. Yet avoidance is never complete. Even when denied, the truth lingers, echoing quietly in observation and memory. It may emerge as fleeting doubt, subtle anxiety, or a recurrent thought that refuses to fade. The mind cannot fully ignore what the heart senses, nor can it dismiss what perception recognizes. Recognition is often accompanied by ambivalence. There is fear of what will change, of what will be lost, of the confrontation with reality. There is grief, for illusions shattered, for comfort displaced, for certainty replaced with ambiguity. And there is curiosity, a tentative openness to understanding what has been previously unacknowledged. The first awareness of uncomfortable truth can feel isolating. It sets the individual apart from others who remain unperturbed or unaware. There is a subtle loneliness in perception, the sense that one sees something that others do not or refuse to see. This awareness carries responsibility, the responsibility of acknowledgement, contemplation, and potential action. Even subtle truths can ripple through consciousness. A small realization, a misalignment, an overlooked injustice, a hidden motive, can ignite introspection, questioning, and reflection. The mind begins to weigh consequences, consider implications, and anticipate outcomes. What was once simple or unquestioned now carries complexity, ambiguity, and tension. Recognition is a moment of awakening. It signals the crossing of a threshold from comfort into confrontation, from assumption into awareness. The uncomfortable truth demands presence, attention, and reflection. It is a quiet, insistent call to acknowledge what has been seen, felt, or intuited. The body, mind, and heart respond together. There is a simultaneous contraction and expansion, contraction in fear or resistance, expansion in awareness and perception. This duality is natural, even necessary. To recognize discomfort is the first step in navigating it, a step that requires courage, patience, and subtle attentiveness. In this recognition, the individual begins a journey. It is a journey into self-awareness, into relational understanding, and into the complexity of human perception. The uncomfortable truth is no longer abstract, it is lived, sensed, and carried. It has arrived, not as an enemy, but as a teacher. Denial is older than awareness. It is a defense woven into the fabric of human survival, a subtle shield against emotional overwhelm. From childhood, the mind learns to protect itself from what feels unbearable, incomprehensible, or threatening. To deny is not weakness, it is strategy, instinctive and adaptive. Early experiences shape this reflex. A child witnessing conflict, loss, or inconsistency may learn that some truths are too dangerous, too painful, or too complex to acknowledge. They may conceal observation to maintain harmony, avoid reprimand, or preserve connection. These lessons imprint subtly, forming a template for later resistance to discomfort. Cognitive bias reinforces avoidance. The mind favors consistency and coherence, seeking to align perception with expectation. When reality contradicts belief, the mental machinery works quietly to dismiss, distort, or rationalize. Selectimation bias and mental compartmentalization all act as barriers to uncomfortable awareness. Emotional coping reinforces denial. Fear, shame, guilt, or grief can feel intolerable, particularly when layered with personal vulnerability. Suppressing awareness or minimizing its impact becomes a form of emotional self-preservation. The mind whispers, "Not yet," "not safe," "not necessary to see this now." Social context also shapes denial. Culture, family, and peer influence dictate which truths are acceptable, tolerable, or acknowledged. An uncomfortable truth may be avoided because recognition risks isolation, conflict, or disapproval. Compliance with these norms becomes a subtle, almost invisible habit, part protection, part conformity. Even intelligence and insight do not prevent denial. The conscious mind may recognize evidence, yet deeper psychological layers resist integration. The unconscious preserves comfort, equilibrium, and self-concept. This tension between knowledge and avoidance is a hallmark of the human response to difficult reality. Denial can be nuanced. It is not always complete rejection. It may manifest as distraction, rationalization, projection, or minimization. The mind creates mental buffers, softening the impact of the truth until the individual feels able to engage with it safely. The roots of denial reveal a paradox. The very mechanisms that protect the self can also limit growth, awareness, and authentic engagement. They are adaptive in the moment, yet potentially constraining over a lifetime. Denial is both preservation and imprisonment, a protective echo from childhood, cognitive architecture from survival, and emotional strategy from experience. Understanding these roots reframes resistance. Denial is not failure or deficiency, it is an expression of the human imperative to endure, to cope, and to protect inner life from being overwhelmed. It carries subtle intelligence, preserving equilibrium while the individual develops the capacity to confront what is difficult. The seeds of avoidance lie in memory, fear, and habit. They shape the lens through which uncomfortable truths are first encountered, filtering perception and guiding early reaction. To recognize these roots is to illuminate why discomfort is resisted, preparing the mind and heart for eventual engagement. In this reflection, denial is not an enemy but a guide. It signals vulnerability, highlights stakes, and gestures toward the areas in life that require patience, courage, and incremental awareness. The human mind resists uncomfortable truths not out of ignorance, but out of care, an instinctive, protective attentiveness to the fragility of consciousness. Cognitive dissonance is the quiet storm of the mind. It appears when two truths collide, the one we hold and the one we cannot deny. The result is tension, subtle yet persistent, a mental friction that demands resolution. It may manifest as unease, restlessness, or the nagging sense that something is unresolved. The mind seeks equilibrium. Humans have an inherent drive to align perception with belief, to create internal coherence. When reality contradicts expectation, the psyche is unsettled, and effort is devoted, sometimes unconsciously, to restoring harmony. This can take the form of rationalization, "It is not that bad," or "There must be another explanation." Selective attention becomes a tool. The uncomfortable truth is partially filtered, minimized, or ignored. One may focus on supporting evidence for prior beliefs while relegating contradiction to the periphery. In this way, the mind preserves identity, stability, and comfort, even as fragments of reality demand acknowledgement. Emotion amplifies dissonance. Guilt, shame, fear, or anxiety may accompany awareness of inconsistency between self-perception and fact. These emotions are signals, guiding attention to what is unresolved, while also creating resistance, because feeling too much can overwhelm the fragile equilibrium of thought and identity. Rationalization provides relief. The mind weaves explanations, justifications, and reinterpretations to reduce tension. "They didn't mean harm," or "It's not my responsibility." These narratives smooth the jagged edges of conflict between belief and reality. Rationalization is subtle, often invisible even to the one employing it. Yet it is a natural attempt to reconcile discomfort. Projection and externalization are also common. The tension of dissonance may be displaced onto others' blame, criticism, or judgment directed outward can mask the inner conflict. The uncomfortable truth is recognized internally but denied relationally, a defensive strategy to preserve self-concept and emotional safety. Cognitive dissonance is not merely psychological turbulence, it is a signal. It marks areas where perception, expectation, and reality diverge. It highlights growth potential, areas for reflection, and the choices that must be made between comfort and awareness. Resolution does not always require immediate acceptance. Sometimes it is gradual, incremental, and contemplative. The tension can become chronic if avoidance dominates. Repeated dissonance without integration can foster anxiety, indecision, or subtle withdrawal. Yet, when acknowledged, it can deepen insight, strengthen resilience, and cultivate clarity of thought. The discomfort is not a flaw, it is a guide, pointing to the edges of understanding, the limits of assumption, and the opportunities for growth. Living with cognitive dissonance demands both patience and courage. It is the recognition that the mind can hold contradiction, that reality may be uncomfortable, and that awareness itself is an active process. The old patterns of denial, avoidance, or rationalization may resist, but the tension remains, a quiet insistence of truth seeking acknowledgement. Ultimately, cognitive dissonance illuminates the complex architecture of thought. It is where perception meets expectation, where the mind negotiates reality, and where the uncomfortable truth begins to carve space in consciousness. In this friction lies both challenge and potential, the discomfort of awareness and the beginning of profound understanding. The recognition of uncomfortable truth awakens emotion like a storm stirring a quiet sea. Even subtle realizations can ripple through the mind and body, evoking tension, unease, or sadness. Emotions arise unbidden, sometimes quietly like a shadow stretching across consciousness, sometimes loudly like a sudden gust of wind, impossible to ignore. Shame and guilt are common companions. They linger in the spaces between thought and action, whispering reminders of personal responsibility failure or moral lapse. Shame signals that one's self-concept has collided with reality. Guilt reflects the awareness of impact, what has been done, left undone, or overlooked. Both emotions are uncomfortable, yet they serve as mirrors, reflecting truths the mind may resist acknowledging. Anxiety often emerges in tandem. The uncomfortable truth demands attention, yet uncertainty surrounds it. What does this mean? What consequences will follow? The body reacts as though preparing for risk. Tension rises in shoulders, heartbeat quickens, thoughts race. The mind struggles to contain the awareness while seeking safety, comfort, and understanding. Grief accompanies recognition of loss, imperfection, or change. Even truths that do not directly involve personal loss can evoke mourning for lost illusions, unmet expectations, or the fragility of certainty. The emotional weight is subtle yet persistent, a quiet ache underlying thought, reflection, and interaction. Emotional responses vary in intensity and duration. Some truths provoke fleeting discomfort, others linger for years, shaping perception, behavior, and relational patterns. The old response of avoidance may resurface, even as the mind knows it is no longer sufficient. Emotions demand processing, reflection, and eventually integration. Interpersonal dynamics are affected. The awareness of an uncomfortable truth can create distance from those who remain unaware, dismissive, or resistant. Conflict may arise, or subtle tension may develop, as the individual navigates disclosure, concealment, or careful engagement. The emotional weight of truth can alter relationships in ways both overt and invisible. Yet emotion is not merely a burden, it is also guidance. Shame, guilt, anxiety, and grief indicate areas of significance, moral reflection, and personal values. They are signals that something matters deeply, that perception and reality intersect in ways that require attention, care, and understanding. Emotion becomes a compass, directing the mind toward awareness and potential growth. Resilience emerges through engagement. Those who confront uncomfortable truth gradually learn to sit with emotion without being overwhelmed, to observe feeling without immediate reaction, and to reflect before acting. This capacity allows the uncomfortable truth to be acknowledged while maintaining equilibrium. Ultimately, the emotional impact of uncomfortable truths is a testament to human depth. It is a sign of consciousness fully engaged, of empathy, insight, and moral perception awakened. To feel discomfort is to be alive, aware, and present. The storm of emotion, once navigated, becomes a bridge between awareness and understanding, guiding the individual toward clarity and authenticity. Awareness carries weight. The uncomfortable truth is never neutral. It demands recognition, and sometimes action. To hold it in consciousness is to carry both insight and burden, a duality that shapes thought, emotion, and behavior. The more persistent the truth, the more demanding the responsibility of engagement. Confrontation with reality fosters clarity. The mind recognizes misalignment between belief and fact, expectation and experience. This recognition can illuminate patterns of behavior, decision-making, and relational dynamics that were previously obscured. Insight arises slowly, often through reflection, emotional processing, and repeated encounters with the same uncomfortable awareness. Yet the weight is heavy. Persistent truths can generate anxiety, rumination, or moral tension. Individuals may oscillate between acknowledgement and avoidance, between facing reality and retreating into comforting illusions. This tension is not weakness, it is the natural result of balancing consciousness with emotional resilience. The burden extends into relationships. Uncomfortable truths often highlight discrepancies between self-perception and others' behavior, between expectation and reality. This can create conflict, subtle estrangement, or moments of loneliness. The individual may feel alienated from those who do not perceive or acknowledge the same realities, intensifying the sense of carrying something unseen. Avoidance mitigates weight temporarily but not permanently. Denial may smooth emotional edges, but unresolved truth lingers in observation, thought, and subconscious processing. The mind remembers, the body reacts, and the heart senses incongruence. Eventually, awareness seeks integration, resistance delays it but cannot prevent it indefinitely. The weight of awareness can be transformative. It cultivates insight, moral reflection, and emotional depth. Individuals who face uncomfortable truths gradually develop resilience, patience, and subtle wisdom. They learn to navigate tension without surrendering to despair, to balance empathy with self-protection, and to engage with reality without becoming overwhelmed. Perspective emerges from sustained engagement. The uncomfortable truth, once processed, expands consciousness, highlighting complexity, nuance, and the limits of certainty. The individual becomes attuned to subtleties, adept at noticing hidden dynamics, and capable of acting with intention rather than impulse. Awareness itself becomes a tool, a framework for understanding life more fully. Yet the weight persists in subtle ways. Even after integration, the memory of confrontation, tension, or moral reflection remains a quiet presence, shaping judgment, empathy, and thought. It is a constant reminder that truth carries responsibility, that insight demands care, and that understanding is never without cost. Ultimately, the weight of awareness is both burden and gift. It is a measure of consciousness fully engaged, of thought and emotion attending to life's complexity. Those who bear it carry subtle strength, clarity, and depth, qualities forged through confrontation, reflection, and sustained observation. The uncomfortable truth is no longer a fleeting revelation. It becomes a companion shaping perspective, guiding judgment, and enriching understanding. To bear it is to live awake fully, consciously, and with the quiet courage that comes from seeing reality without illusion. Integration begins with acknowledgement. To face the uncomfortable truth is not to conquer it immediately, but to allow it space in consciousness. Recognition alone is a first step, a subtle act of courage, a conscious willingness to sit with unease rather than flee from it. Reflection deepens understanding. The mind examines the implications of the truth, tracing its impact on perception, belief, and behavior. Questions arise: how does this change my understanding? How does this affect my relationships? What assumptions must I reconsider? This reflective practice allows insight to grow gradually, without the urgency of sudden resolution. Emotional regulation is essential. The raw discomfort of awareness can stir anxiety, shame, or grief. Through self-compassion and observation, the individual learns to feel fully without being consumed. Breathing mindful attention, or simply witnessing the emotion without judgment provides a scaffold for processing. The heart, like the mind, requires patient attention. Perspective shifts with time. Repeated engagement with uncomfortable truths allows integration into personal narrative. The truth becomes part of the individual's understanding of life. Not an external threat, but a constituent of awareness. What once unsettled now informs judgment, empathy, and insight. Acceptance does not erase discomfort. The tension remains subtle, a reminder of growth, vulnerability. Yet in acceptance, discomfort loses its tyranny. It becomes a companion in reflection, a guide to discernment, and a marker of authenticity. To integrate is not to simplify reality, but to inhabit it with consciousness and equanimity. Relationships benefit from integration. Acknowledgement of truth allows communication with clarity and honesty. It fosters authenticity, improves emotional attunement, and reduces projection or misinterpretation. The individual learns to navigate social currents with insight, contributing rather than reacting, observing rather than avoiding. Integration cultivates resilience. The mind learns that discomfort is temporary, that insight emerges through reflection, and that awareness can coexist with equilibrium. The old fear of facing reality diminishes, not because life becomes simpler, but because the self becomes stronger, more capacious, and better able to hold complexity. The process is iterative. Uncomfortable truths may resurface, interact with new experiences, or challenge prior assumptions. Integration is never complete, it is ongoing, like a river that flows steadily, shaping and reshaping the landscape of thought and emotion. Each encounter deepens understanding, enriches perspective, and fortifies the capacity to live consciously. Ultimately, pathways to integration transform tension into insight. They honor the complexity of life, the necessity of discomfort, and the subtle wisdom that arises from reflection. The uncomfortable truth ceases to be a threat and becomes a teacher, guiding perception, judgment, and emotional understanding. Through acknowledgement, reflection, and patience, the weight of awareness is balanced. The mind and heart learn to coexist with truth, to embrace complexity, and to navigate life with intention. Integration is not surrender, but mastery, a quiet, mindful presence that turns discomfort into depth. There is freedom in acknowledgement. The uncomfortable truth, once resisted, begins to lose its power to unsettle. By facing it, the mind and heart reclaim equilibrium, and the tension that once weighed heavily transforms into clarity. What was once a shadow becomes a guide, illuminating perception, decision-making, and understanding. Truth, even when uncomfortable, brings authenticity. To live with honesty is to align inner perception with outward action. To bridge the space between observation and expression, the individual becomes more transparent with themselves and others, less reliant on illusion or denial, and more capable of navigating life with intentionality. Freedom lies not in erasure of discomfort, but in conscious engagement with it. Wisdom emerges through confrontation. The process of seeing, reflecting, and integrating teaches patience, empathy, and discernment. The uncomfortable truth becomes a teacher, revealing both personal and relational dynamics, highlighting patterns, and exposing assumptions previously unexamined. Each insight gained adds depth to self-awareness and clarity to understanding of others. Relationships transform under the light of acknowledgement. communication becomes more honest, perception more nuanced, and engagement more mindful. The old burdens of avoidance, projection, or rationalization are lifted incrementally, replaced with subtle attunement and considered presence. Trust deepens, not through perfection, but through authenticity and reflective integrity. Emotional resilience strengthens. By confronting what is difficult, the individual learns to feel without being overwhelmed, to process without suppression, and to engage without retreat. The emotional landscape becomes navigable rather than treacherous, and the capacity for compassion, empathy, and insight expands. Liberation lies in the integration of mind, heart, and experience. The uncomfortable truth is no longer external or threatening. It is internalized, reflected upon, and reconciled with lived experience. Awareness becomes a tool, guiding thought, shaping behavior, and informing relationships with clarity and intentionality. In facing uncomfortable truths, one discovers the paradox of human consciousness, that challenge can bring freedom, tension can yield clarity, and difficulty can cultivate depth. To live fully is to encounter truth in all its facets, to carry its weight with grace, and to transform awareness into understanding. Ultimately, liberation is a quiet, steady presence. It is the calm that follows confrontation, the insight that follows reflection, and the resilience that arises from integration. The uncomfortable truth once feared becomes a companion, a teacher, and a marker of authenticity. In embracing reality without illusion, the human mind learns its capacity for depth, empathy, and clarity. It learns that awareness, even when uncomfortable, is not punishment, but a path toward freedom, understanding, and the profound richness of conscious life.